DBSCG things.
What's up, Yuhp gang? It's your boy Taxon, and welcome back to Yuhp DBSCG Things, and today we're going over another very exciting deck profile, guys. This is going to be the deck that I took to my last locals and took second place with. This is my new Dash Pack Support Green Cooler. But before we get into it, guys, I do want to say if you guys want any custom mats and or sleeves, absolutely check out Promats, guys. This is the best place to go get your custom card needs, and if you guys do decide to get a mat from them, make sure you guys use the promo code Yuhp to save on your entire order. With that being said, guys, if you guys enjoyed this list or my content in general, remember to hit all those buttons for me. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And with that being said, let's spin it around and dive in. Alrighty, you guys, here is the deck. Now let's go ahead and go over it. First things first, let's go ahead and talk about the leader. Auto, when you attack, you take a life, and then you get the option to either play a one-drop unison from your hand with a marker on it, or draw a card. You also get this other auto once per turn that when one of your green unisons go from the unison area to the drop area, you draw a card. Your awakening ability is at 4 or less. You get to untap one and draw one. There's no secondary awakening. You have to get to 4 or less, but it's pretty easy because we take life. Auto on the front, on the back side, basically the same, except for you don't take a life. You swing, you get the option to draw a card, and if you don't, you get to play a green unison with a energy cost of 1 with 1 marker on it. Auto. Same thing as the front side. When one of your green unisons go to the drop area from the unison area, you draw a card, and then you have an activate battle, which kind of works like the old Dark Broly skill before it got eroded. You get to activate battle, place a unison from your hand to the drop area, and it essentially gives your leader 5k for the duration of the battle. And, you can do that endless amounts of times. So, first things first, we dive directly into the unison package. I like to start off with the ones I like to start off with. For Demagra, I still think that this card's essential for this deck, because if you open one of your other unisons and it's only like one of the ones with +1, all of them are like relatively small. They're all like 5k and stuff, so they'll just die really easily to like 1-drop searches and stuff. So you want to open this guy so that it doesn't die due to attacks, because it does have this permanent that if it loses a marker due to an opponent's attack, you can choose to take a life instead. And then you have a +1, it gains 10k, so it becomes a 15 attacker. And then you have a -3, which you almost never use, but it is definitely a thing. Choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, KO it, and then you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 3 or less, ignoring barrier, and KO it. So your -3 is like a double removal. Almost never comes up, but you can use it if it does. Our next opener we like to open up just in case. This is like our backup opener. He's a 1-cost unison. He's a 4k, but he is the only +2. So when this guy pluses 2, he gets 6k, so he's essentially just a 10k attacker. So that's another reason why he's more important to be opened up with, because you want to start small and get big as the game goes on. He has Empower 2, which is important because when you play him for 1, you Empower 2, so you can take 2 markers off the unison below him, so he comes out for 3, which it will trigger his auto here, which a lot of these unisons will have an auto if it's played with 3 or more, 4 or more, etc. So if this one says if it's played with 3 or more markers, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and it cannot attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. So it's kind of like a little Mafuba, and it also negates the attack as well. So you can use this at counter timing, which will proc your leader's auto on your opponent's turn, so you can get the draw from your leader's auto on your and your opponent's turn. The +2 is the why he's important, though, because most decks can't swing more than 2 times on their turn 1. Unless it's a hyper aggro deck. Next up, we're going into this guy because he's our counterplay of the deck. Essentially, he's Frieza Charismatic. He has Empower Green 2, just like this guy, so you play him for 1 energy. He essentially replaces himself with your leader effect, so he'll draw a card. If he's played with 3 or more markers, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 7 or less and KO it. And then his +1 is to give him 5k, and he becomes a 15k attacker. Next up, and the auto isn't if you play him on your opponent's turn. So like you can just play him on your turn as a 15k attacker and still get the KO. Next up, we have Cruel Command. This is a new Dash Pack card and a really, really good support for the deck. He has Empower Green 3, so when you play him for 1 or off your leader, he will get the 3 markers from your unison that's already in the unison area, and then he'll get this auto. Auto limit 1. If he has played with 3 or more markers on it, when this card is played, you get to choose a green card from your drop area, place it into your Z energy, and then this card will gain dual attack for the duration of the turn. That's really important because you can Z charge things like your negates, your dormants, your other things like your unisons. That's really important. And then of course your +1 is burst 1 card from the top of your deck, which can be crucial because if you burst like a Golden Frieza, which I did a lot at locals, and bursting super combo sucks. But anyways, bursting gives them 10k, so it becomes a 15k dual attack, which is really nice early game. Next up, we're running 3 copies of Frieza Galactic Dynasty. I trimmed this from 4 to 3 because I was testing out some other stuff, but I think I'm going to put it back to 4. Anyways, this card has Empower Green 3 permanent. This card can while this card has 3 or fewer markers on it, it cannot attack, but not a big problem unless you're using him as your opener unison. When he gets played, he has an Empower 3, so he's going to come up for 4, and then you get this auto. If he's played with 3 or more markers on it, your opponent has to choose a card in their hand and discard it, and then of course his +1 is give him 10k and make him a 20k attacker. A little one-off spice. I was just testing this out, but it's probably going to get taken out of the deck because I haven't used it yet. This is Yeren, Crane School, Witchcraft Master. I know a lot of you guys might not know this card because it's just not very known. It's a 1-cost green unison, so it fits well with the theme of the deck. It has Empower Green 4, which is another reason why it fits very well with the deck. And then it has this auto that is, if it's played with 5 or more markers on it, when this card is played, you get to choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. This one doesn't have any cost requirement, so you can kill just about anything in the game as long as it doesn't have barrier. And then, of course, it has a +2, which is, it could be used as an opener unison if you needed to because it does have the +2. But essentially, you get to choose one of your 2-cost or less battle cards and give it 5k for the turn, which you're almost never going to use. The reason I added it into the deck is for this activate main -4. You get to choose one of your green leader cards and give it +5k and double strike for the turn. So essentially, I was thinking that this could be like a way to trigger my leader's draw and then give him double strike. But I haven't found a way to use it yet. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Golden Frieza Newfound Might. This guy is the big bomb of the deck. He's a 20k 3-cost unison. He has Empower Green 4, so when he's played, he'll come out for 7 markers if you get the full Empower effect. And then you get Dual Attack Blocker as his other keyword skills. You have this counterattack effect that you almost will never use unless you really have to get a board wipe on your opponent's turn. You get to play this card with 3 or more markers on it, and then if this card is played with 4 or more markers on it, when this card is played, you get to choose all of your opponent's battle cards and KO them. So it is a mass board wipe as long as your opponent doesn't have a battlefield full of barrier. And then, of course, you have this -4 activate main. This card will get plus 10,000 power and triple strike, and then at the end of the turn, it will switch to active mode so that you can utilize that blocker skill. Very, very nice. And, of course, since it's a blocker, it pairs very well with Dormant. Next up, going into our extra card package, we have 4 copies of Dormant. Very, very essential, especially with some of the more aggro decks that are trying to peek their head into the meta right now. We have Counterattack. You basically just KO a 2-cost or less on your opponent, or up to 2 costs on your opponent's side of the field, and then if you discard a green card from your hand, you can make your opponent only attack 1 more time for the turn. It does not negate the attack, so that's important to note. Next up, we have Homicidal Clones. This says, essentially, if you're at 5 or less life, you can take a life to counter it for free, and then it negates the attack, and then when you negate the attack, you get to play a clone token with blocker for the duration of the turn. 3 copies of that because it pairs very nicely with a lot of the other blockers in our deck, and of course pairing with Dormant is very, very good. 2 more extra cards that we run Cell's Earth Destroying Kamehameha. This card I was considering cutting, but I just find myself using this card a lot more than I probably should be. Just having a 1-cost 15k that makes your opponent go -1 in hand as well as you when you're using the plus 15 is really, really good, especially when it comes to getting out of attacks and or going in for game. Next up, because we're running unisons, we run 4 copies of Charismatic Frieza. Charismatic is absolutely busted, and I'm surprised it hasn't hit the chopping block because most of the free counterplays have already. Anyways, Frieza Charismatic, essentially the same thing as this unison, so it makes it so that you have essentially 4 or 8 total copies of Frieza Charismatic that you can use on your opponent's turn, and then these ones will draw you a card off your leader, which is important to keep account of. Next up in our battle card lineup, we have our super combos. We run Defending Father Paragus. There's not a good searchable super combo for the deck, so we just run a Paragus because it's the best green super combo. Warp or draw 2 and then warp 1 after you draw 2. It's a very, very good skill. Next up, we have our 1-drops. This is our searcher for the deck. Essentially, when you play him, you top 5 search, you get to grab one of your green unisons with an energy cost of 3 or less and add it to your hand. And then he has this nifty auto that is very, very good if your opponent doesn't decide to get rid of this card. Activate once per turn when this card, when one of your green unisons is placed into the drop area, so it kind of works like the auto on your leader. You get to choose up to 1 of your life and add it to your hand, and then regardless if you do or not, this card will get 11,000 power for the duration of the turn. So it'll make it a 15k beater that'll work very well with the theme of all your little 15k pokes. Next up, another new dash pack card. We have 3 copies of the King Cold, leader of the Frieza clan. This card is very, very good, and like when it's paired up with Dormant, you essentially just stop turns. It's just very, very strong. So essentially, you have unique barrier blocker. Barrier blocker is just a very, very good combo of keywords to have when it comes to trying to make a defensive lineup for your board. Just because this card is not going to get removed, and this doesn't negate the first attack, so you can Dormant block. And then, of course, let me explain to you his other autos. First off, he is a 4 cost, but for each green unison in your drop area, he reduces himself by 1 in your hand, so he can go all the way down to his specified 1 green. So you can play him for 1 energy. He has an auto once per turn. If your leader is a Frieza clan card, it doesn't even say green. At the end of your turn, or when this card activates this blocker's skill, switch it to active mode. So you do get to attack with it, and at the end of the turn, it will just switch to active mode. And then, of course, when you block with it after negating with Dormant, you get to just untap him and then block again. He is 20k, so that's really important to know, especially with this other auto. When this card activates its blocker skill, use up to 1 mono green card with 5,000 power from your drop area with its skills negated for the duration of the turn. So you get to combo with a 5k from the drop area, which is super, super strong because you just Dormant, pitch a card, which you can just pitch the 5k, block here, get his auto to untap, get his auto to combo from the drop. Now he's 25k. And that second auto is not once per turn. So if you block with the second attack after Dormant, which is going to be their last attack of the turn, you don't get to untap again, but you do get to combo and go to 25. So if they don't go to 25 on either one of those swings, he just stays alive and you can do it again next turn. Very, very strong card. Next up, we have 2 copies of Cooler's Sibling Cruelty. This guy is a 0/5 20k double striker. He has a permanent exactly like this card. Based off how many green unisons you have in your drop area, he will reduce himself in your hand by 1 energy. So essentially, he can go down to a specified 1, so you can play him for 1. Auto, when this card is played, you can choose... when this card is played, you can't play copies of it for the turn, very important to note. And then you get to choose 1 of your green unisons in your drop area, place it at the bottom of your deck, and then your opponent will discard 1 comfort card from their hand. Pretty solid card. Next up, going into a little bit of our tech pieces, we have 2 Dodoria. This is essentially just to stop some floodgates that the meta provides. Stops a lot of the floodgates. And Gamma, it stops a lot of the floodgates for yellow, stops Topo. It stops a lot of the battle card floodgates, so it's just important to have. And then also, another important reason to use this card is because on your turn 1, if you go second, you can swing with your leader, take a life, free cast a unison. And then because you have a unison to play, this card is live, but you haven't used your energy yet because you can cast it off your leader. So you can leave an energy up, and if you're going against like Beerus Ramp or like Bojack that has the ramp card, you can just leave your 1 energy up on your turn 1 to use this going into their next turn so that you can essentially just counterplay their Z card and they don't get the ramp. It's not great, but I do use it often. So I just leave it in the deck. Next up, our last 3 cards of the deck are 1-ofs. We have Hidden Power E Supreme Kai. Basically, when you combo with them, you just choose the attacking card and you give them double strike. Very, very good card. Next up, we have Dark Broly Heartless Berserker. This is just the best overall choice right now, especially for this deck when it comes to clone tokens being a thing when you're going in for game. Reason to know is like things like the clone token negates the Kamisado is like a one-stop shop to kill, ending this card's onslaught. So like when you play them, it's board wipe. You swing with you -4. You swing with the triple strike. Your opponent will more than likely do this. They take 1 life. They play a blocker, and then essentially that blocker will stop the next attack. Right. Well, it's important to note because now we have this, and we can just warp that blocker and force them to either use another one or just get the attack through. Next up is our secret rare of choice. Majin Buu Kibito Kai Absorbed. Very, very strong card, especially with how a lot of decks are trying to adapt bigger unisons, considering that they're trying to avoid Smoke Dragon being in the meta right now. This is just another way for Green just to say, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and take your unison and say no, while at the same time being a fantastic floodgate for the deck, because it is activate main / battle, so you can do this in battle. And like I said, this card pairs very, very well with Dormant. But if you block with it and not counter, you can go block. You get your auto to untap, combo a 5k, and then during that battle you can pay 2 to do this guy. And then your opponent can't attack with battle cards for the turn. And then you can block their next attack as well, which is very important to note that if they missynchronize their turn, like attack with a leader first, you can block here, use this. They can't tackle battle cards, and if they attack with a unison, this will untap and then block the unison attack as well. So very, very good. That is my main board. Very, very slim 52 card list. I'll go over the Z deck really quickly because we got a new card and new support in there as well. First off, we have one SSB Vegeta surmounting the impossible. This card is absolutely phenomenal, and it performs through the roof in this deck. So this deck, because it takes its own life, it does self-awaken itself very, very quickly. And most people wouldn't think this, but you can almost consistently awaken on your turn 2 with this deck almost every single time. Because if your opponent attacks you one time, and you get to attack twice with your leader, you're taking 2 life. So that's 1 from your leader, 2 from your own, and then as long as you have him, or you see him, you essentially awaken on your turn 2. So very, very good card, and it helps you filter out some things that you don't need in hand as well, while getting to see more new things. Next up, some more generic green. Frieza Resurrected Ambition. I did use this card quite a bit actually in comparison to some of the other things in my Z deck. Essentially, he just comes out and KOs something 5 or less, but then he has this other nifty auto that when you attack with something that's greater than 2 cost, you get to pop a Z energy and force your opponent to discard a card from hand. I found myself enjoying using this card paired with this card because you can just 1 energy for him, 2 energy for him, swing with him, and pop energy off him, and then now they discarded 2 and now they're dealing with 2 double strike attacks. It's pretty solid. Next up, we have 2 Jiren the Immovable. This Z card I felt is just kind of necessary for green decks right now. Just it helps get rid of unisons, and it's also a good game ender pusher, being a 25k double strike that can be removed. But I have not used it yet, so that's that. This next card though, I've used very much, so a lot actually. So essentially what this card does, we have 2 copies of this new card. It's the new Golden Frieza Return of the Destroyer. He is a deflect double strike for 20k, which is very, very powerful in itself. It does cost 4 Z energy, but he does have this nifty permanent that kind of works like some of these other cards' permanents, like this Cooler and this King Cold. It reduces its Z cost by 1 in your Z deck for every green unison in your drop area. So just like these guys would work based off their energy cost, this guy works just like that, but based off its Z cost. So he can go all the way down to, and it only in quotations it says up to 2, so you can go down to a 2 cost for 2 Z energy, which is very, very good. Especially with how easy this deck can generate Z energy now. So like you can just play him for essentially free off your leader and just get a free Z energy, and just this guy generates this deck generates Z energy pretty well now. So anyways, he does have this very, very nifty auto. If it is your turn, when a green unison is placed into your drop area from your unison area, your opponent, you get to choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and KO it. And then this card will get 5k for the battle. So he will become a 25k double strike that just removes something ignoring barrier. And he also has this very, very sweet effect. Activate main once per turn for 2 energy. If your leader is a green Frieza Clan card, and you have 4 or more energy, you get to play 1 green unison with a specified cost of 3 or less from your hand with a marker on it. So this is a 2 energy way to just cheat out Golden Frieza, but it only plays with 1 marker, so it's very important to know that his Empower 4 will only get him to 5 if you're getting the full effect of the Empower 4. So the -4 will put him to 1 marker, and essentially if your opponent just swings at him once, and if you don't kill him, you kind of lose your Z chain, so you got to be kind of careful when you're going into that type of play. But it's really important to note that when you play him, you don't get that auto because it's when the unison goes to drop. So you can play him and then tap 2 to play this or any of the unisons for that matter. And then when you do so, you get to proc his auto to remove something ignoring barrier, and then get the auto from whatever you played, which most of the time is going to be Golden Frieza. So you get to blow up everything not ignoring barrier, and then you get 1 removal of barrier and 5k. So very, very solid card, and it works very, very well with the deck. So with that being said, guys, that was my cooler list. If you guys enjoyed this list, remember to hit all those buttons for me, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.